UCLA was better than LSU in the first half, and yet they still lose by 3 scores. So no, this is not a moral victory for the Bruins. A lot of good stuff, but a lot of bad stuff as well. We'll talk about all of it on today's edition of the Locked On UCLA Postcast right now.
You are Locked On Bruins Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Bruin Nation? What's going on? And welcome back to another edition of the Locked On UCLA Postcast, coming at you live right here on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel, and after the fact, both on the channel and wherever you get the Locked On UCLA podcast feed. If you don't know who I am, hello everybody. My name is Gavin Carlson. I'm a former credentialed UCLA journalist with the Daily Bruin. I'm also a lifelong Bruin fan, born and raised, loving UCLA, the son of an alum, and I'm a recent alum myself from this wonderful university that we all love. So I have every perspective on UCLA and UCLA football. I was on campus today. I was at the game last week to witness what happened against Indiana. In today's game, hey, UCLA looked really good and really impressive in the first half. Surprised a lot of people. Kind of what we expected coming into this season from a DeShaun Foster-led program. I'll talk all about that throughout this show. But man, really disappointing with the second half there. Just get completely dominated. And what was a tie game at halftime turns into another 3-score loss. And you ultimately lose this one by 17, 34-17. Shout out to everybody in here before we start this one. The support on last week's postcast was unbelievable. More than 5,000 people watched that video. A lot of Bruin Nation, so appreciate all of you. A lot of Indiana fans as well because they were excited about the win, but they were actually quite civil in the comments, so I'll give them credit to that. But yeah, shout out to all of you for checking that one out. And also a shout out to the sponsor of today's postcast. It is FanDuel. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So let's talk about this first half and why, in my opinion, this game perfectly describes what the experience will be like under DeShaun Foster, hopefully just for now, okay? Because when UCLA hired DeShaun Foster, what was this? This was a energy hire, a passion hire, an alum, one of the greatest Bruins to ever do it for this team, a guy who bleeds blue and gold, who's going to come in and bring fight, bring aggressiveness to UCLA. And they talked about it on the broadcast. DeShaun Foster was showing this team highlights from Mike Tyson getting upset, one of the biggest upsets in sports history, modern sports history, saying, we're going to do the same thing. And you saw that in the first half. UCLA, in my opinion, was better than LSU. Is LSU more talented than UCLA at just about every position? Unfortunately, yes. And it will probably be like that for a year or two until DeShaun Foster is given enough time to build this program. We've seen the recruiting get boosted since he has become the head coach. Hopefully, eventually, we'll get more NIL support, and this team, talent-wise, will be to the level of LSU. Now, did UCLA beat LSU back in 2021? Yes, I was there at that game at the Rose Bowl. Unbelievable game. And that was a case of an LSU team that was overrated, a UCLA team that was underrated, and a coach in Chip Kelly that is a better schematic coach than DeShaun Foster at this point. He coached a great game, and a team in UCLA that was probably as talented as LSU was coached better than that team. Ed Ogeron came in talking all that jazz about, powder blue, baby blue UCLA, and we punched him in the mouth physically, but we also outcoached them. In this first half, it's a completely different game. UCLA is at LSU, in Death Valley, in Baton Rouge. First game at LSU, one of the toughest environments in college football. After that disgraceful performance last week at home against Indiana, everybody counted this team out. And yet, like I said, they outplayed LSU in the first half. If it's not for the offensive line still being abysmal and allowing Ethan Garbers to get hit almost every throw that was completed, Garbers was still evading 3 or 4 pass rushers, making incredible throws. I mean, that touchdown at the end of the first half to Logan Loya, oh man, everyone on Twitter was saying it. One of the most impressive throws we've seen in college football this season because of everything he had to do. There were so many times he evaded pressure. He did it in the Indiana game, even when we got blown out. The problem was The pass rush was too much in that game, and Garbers wasn't lights out. I thought Garbers was lights out in this game, other than a couple plays where the offensive line is causing the issues. But the big takeaway, and why this describes the DeShaun Foster experience for right now, is even though UCLA is in a tough environment, even though no one is giving them a chance, strictly out of passion, out of belief alone, UCLA's tied at halftime. Not because DeShaun Foster doesn't even coach or call plays. And I did think Bieniemy had a much better game calling plays, especially in the first half. But UCLA was not better than LSU because they were calling better plays. Their defense, I still think, is terrible in terms of play calling right now. We'll get into that later. UCLA was better than LSU in the first half because they actually played better, or they felt like they were a better team than LSU. You would not think that UCLA is severely outmatched talent-wise. They looked like, body language, and I am not a guy who just likes to go on and on about body language and stuff. I like getting into the nitty-gritty X's and O's of football. But Brian Kelly just said it after the game in the post-game interview. UCLA came out, and they played hard. That's what he said. They played hard. He said, give them credit. They flew across the country, and so did a lot of UCLA fans as well. Shout out to all of them that made that trip across the country. But like Brian Kelly said, and like we all can see, UCLA came across the country in this hostile environment after what happened last week and played harder than LSU and looked like they believed they were going to win this game more than LSU. I tweeted it, and please follow me on Twitter. I had tweets throughout this game. Garbers and company running into the tunnel at halftime, cheering or giving it up to their fan section, acting like they are feeling better about this game going into the second half than LSU. So that is DeShaun Foster. That's all him. Is Chip Kelly a better schematic coach than DeShaun Foster? Absolutely. DeShaun Foster will probably never be the offensive mind that Chip Kelly is. But do I think UCLA goes into Baton Rouge with Chip Kelly and does what they did in that first half? I don't think so. Because Chip Kelly can't motivate. We know that. He can't instill belief in his players that in a game that they are huge underdogs in, they're actually going to go in there and win. All of Chip Kelly's impressive wins, think about them. Other than the USC game, which hardly counts as a road game, you handled business at home against Washington. You handled business at home against Utah, right? Those were the big wins of the Chip Kelly era. You handled business at home against LSU because Chip Kelly, if it's a home field game, the crowd is in favor of you, the talent is not a huge, there's not a huge gap in terms of talent. Okay, it comes down to coaching and individual players making great plays, right? And that's what happened in all those games. But have we seen Chip Kelly bring a UCLA team on the road in a tough environment, in a game they're supposed to lose, and put up a fight like UCLA did in the first half? No. Remember Oregon State? Remember Utah last year? Right, I'm referencing the DTR win against Utah, the DTR win at home against Washington, the DTR win against LSU. But last year, what did this team do? Other than USC, they went to Oregon State and got embarrassed. They went to Utah and looked awful because Chip Kelly cannot motivate like DeShaun Foster can. So he and DeShaun got so much criticism after last week, and rightfully so. That was one of the most horribly coached teams I've ever seen in that game last week, excuse me. But today in the first half, I don't think it was play calling. I don't think it was talent. It was the motivation from DeShaun Foster that kept UCLA in this game and had them tied at the half. That and Garbers being kind of a hero, let's be honest, in that first half. So that's why DeShaun Foster gets a ton of credit for the first half. But this also perfectly describes the DeShaun Foster experience right now because he is still not a good schematic coach right now himself. And he got outcoached in the second half. The teams come out after the break, and LSU made adjustments, and UCLA did not, right? Eric Bieniemy did some things in the first half, specifically in that second quarter, specifically on that drive to tie the game, where, you got Garbers in motion, you got him, moving outside the pocket, avoiding pass rushers. You had a lot of screen calls from Bieniemy today. Love that. But UCLA came out in the second half. LSU was prepared for the energy of UCLA, right? You have to be. It's a tie game. LSU's eyes are open. They're like, whoa, this is going to be a real game. And once LSU matched the intensity of UCLA, they're a better, more talented team with a better coaching staff right now. And I don't think Brian Kelly's that good of a coach at this point, honestly. I think he just loves to yell at his players and, be a hard, tough-nosed coach. But at the end of the day, UCLA didn't do anything in the second half. I mean, they literally didn't score any points. And it wasn't actually because of a costly fumble like we saw in the first half from Garbers. That wasn't his fault at all. A nearly costly fumble from Keegan Jones. It wasn't any of that. It wasn't even the special teams, missing field goals like last week or any crazy punt returns and anything. Special teams used for UCLA was better. The punting was unbelievable in this one. Bagani made his kick in this one. The second half was simply LSU is a better, more talented team that is a better coach team. And there's so many individual mistakes that highlight that. Why in the world, is Femi Oladejo getting called for a disconcerting signal at this point when we know that college football has emphasized calling that out this year? Why in the world is, just so many individual, and why in the world is the offensive line not being helped out enough in the second half, knowing that they're outmatched? Just little things coaching-wise that need to be improved, and you can't expect them to happen right away because DeShaun Foster has never been a head coach. So this is what you expected coming into the season. When UCLA hired DeShaun Foster, my first, comment was, love DeShaun Foster. As someone, a former journalist, I've talked to DeShaun Foster several times. I talked to Chip Kelly a lot. Very different talking to those two guys, especially as a member of the media. So I was like, great for UCLA in terms of passion, in terms of recruiting eventually. But man, who is DeShaun Foster going to hire as his coordinators? Because we know he's not X's and O's wise, execution wise, going to get it done himself. And so Bieniemy showed some things today. He certainly did in terms of relying on the screen game, relying on play action. Run game looked a little bit better today. I thought Bieniemy was okay. But at the end of the game, or at the end of the day, this offense was hampered by an abysmal offensive line. Abysmal. Garbers got sacked how many times? Like 5, I think. And that probably understates how much he was under pressure today because he was evading a lot of pass rushers today. So there are positives in terms of DeShaun Foster. You get a lot of credit for upping the intensity, the passion, the ability. How a team comes out is usually all about coaching. And not X's and O's, maybe a little bit, but you can tell when it's execution versus when it's motivation. This was all motivation with a little bit of execution, certainly, because Bieniemy called a better game. So how the team comes out is all about coaching in terms of that. How the team comes out in the second half is, did you make good adjustments? And we did not at all. And LSU is also just a more talented team. And that's why, some people, including King Vegeta here, who I can't put your comment up because you did swear, but I'm acknowledging it. He says, BS, this is definitely a moral victory. There's going to be some people who feel like that because UCLA in the first half shocked the whole country by tying this game going into the half against LSU. The first half certainly felt like a moral victory. If UCLA lost this game by 3 points, I'm saying it's a moral victory. But they didn't lose this game by a touchdown late. Like USC, some people might even argue that what USC just did against Michigan, if they weren't favorites, coming into the year, if you said, okay, USC loses at the buzzer to Michigan, some people would be like, hey, moral victory. I wouldn't have said that, but the arguments may be there. You lost by 17. So King Vegeta, I respect what you're saying, and I understand. That's why I made the comment or the thumbnail that, because I understand some people feel that, but I don't. It's not a moral victory. You lost by 3 scores. You got completely dominated in every realm in the second half. Intensity and execution and talent and coaching. So certainly there are improvements. And that's why if this was a win or even a tight loss, you feel like, okay, maybe we have a chance in one of the next 2 games. But did this game make you feel like we have a chance at home against Oregon? I don't think so. Did this game make you feel like you have a chance at Penn State? I don't think so. I think we'll probably lose both games by like 10 points, 14 points, right? Which I don't know about you, but as someone who has loved UCLA my entire life, I don't want the football program to be a program that is saying we lost by 17, but at least it wasn't 21. No, this is UCLA. Conference of Champions, Pac-12. No, this is the University of Champions. Number 1 in everything. We know academics, we get all that. Number 1 public university, number 1 campus in the country. I know, I was just there. The campus is amazing. We know the academics are great. We know that the surrounding area, Beverly Hills and all that's great. But sports-wise, let's not forget, second most national championships in the country. And I know it's volleyball and water polo and track and field and basketball, of course, for the most part. But this football program has won a national championship. They used to be up there with USC, going toe-to-toe, being the best team in the Pac-12. They have a more storied program history than a lot of these teams in the Big Ten that are regarded as better than us. The Michigan States, even the Penn States, you could argue. You know, the Wisconsins, not really Nebraska because of what they did decades ago. But like a lot of those non-Ohio State, Michigan type of teams in the Big Ten, UCLA has accomplished almost as much as all of them. And yet nationally, we're seen as nothing. And if we keep saying that losing 17 at home, or on the road, to LSU is a moral victory, we'll always be seen by everyone else as lesser than those types of programs. I am not saying that UCLA should have won this game. I'm not saying that the first half did not surprise me and that I'm thrilled with what I saw out of that first half, especially after the abysmal performance last week. But at the end of the day, you didn't score a point in the second half. You lost by 17. That's not a moral victory. Not for UCLA. Maybe for other programs. But I love this school too much to think that a 17-point loss is a moral victory, and that's just me. But I respect the people who think otherwise because they're using logic and seeing what happened last week and saying, come on, Chip Kelly left this program in a horrible state, right? They left this program without a head coach in the prime time of recruiting. DeShaun Foster now is learning on the fly all of this as the season's going on. So yes, of course, that is all true, which is why I did not expect UCLA to win this game or to win the next game or to win the game after that with Oregon and Penn State. But still, just because we are UCLA, we have to have enough pride to say lose by 7 at LSU. We beat LSU a couple years ago, okay? So 17 is not a moral victory, in my opinion. He didn't score a point in the second half. But that's just me. That's just what I think. So we're going to take our first break here on the Locked On UCLA Postcast. When we come back, I'll get into more of the actual stuff that happened. You know, it's kind of funny. Normally on these shows, I like to go with what happened and then go big picture. But it feels like with both of these games, the number one story is big picture. Last week, of course, it's big picture. Oh my goodness, is UCLA's program screwed for a while? And then today, it feels like this moral victory conversation is the number one thing. And so I have to comment on that. When we come back, I'll talk about the things that went well, specifically X's and O's wise for UCLA in the first half and the things that did not go well for UCLA in the second after these breaks here on the Locked On UCLA Postcast. I'll be right back. Now, today's Locked On UCLA Postcast show is brought to you by Robinhood Retirement. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood Gold or Robinhood. I can't say this. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply for product-specific disclosures. Visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Robinhood Retirement with Robinhood Gold. Back here live on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel. This is the Locked On UCLA Postcast. I'm Gavin Carlson, diehard, lifelong UCLA fan. Just graduated from UCLA a couple months ago, but I also was a credentialed journalist covering this team with the Daily Bruin for 4 years, when I was a student. So yes, I have every perspective on this team, and I've spoken to a lot of the players who are on the field today for UCLA. Bruins fall today, 34-17 in Death Valley, in Baton Rouge. One more time, shout out to all the fans that made that trip. Was really proud as an alum, as a lifelong fan, to see that section of blue and gold there in Death Valley amongst the purple and yellow. And the crowd was great. You heard the UCLA chants. You heard the 8 claps on the TV broadcast. There was one moment in this game where LSU had the ball inside the 5 in front of that section, and you could hear UCLA's crowd making noise as if it was a home game, and LSU's quarterback having to navigate there being a loud crowd, even though he was at home. So that was really impressive. Shout out to those fans who made that trip. And that's the type of passion for this team, for this program, that will consistently make me believe UCLA football is not a team that goes for second place. Are we a national championship contender? No. But there is way too much pride in this program. There's way too many talented high schoolers from our area. And there's way too much, let's be honest, there's way too much NIL money available in this, with these boosters, with the alums that went to this great university, for UCLA to want second place, for UCLA to have moral victories losing by 17. But enough about this big picture stuff. Let's talk about some more specifics of this game. I thought Ethan Garbers was great. Once again, he goes 22 of 36, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have that fumble, not his fault, and he did have that interception, which was largely because of pass rush. Once again, he's evading pass rushers on every play. And of those 22 completions, I bet you that on about 12 of them, he had to make at least one pass rusher miss in order to make the completion. Big time plays from a couple receivers. Quasi Gilmer announced himself to some UCLA fans that might not know him. True freshman from Sierra Canyon, made an unbelievable 32-yard catch down the sideline where he tips it, bobbles it, then is able to corral it, hit the ground, control the ball through the catch, or through the contact with the ground to make the catch. That was great. Keegan Jones showed you some things. 3 catches for 50 yards. He had a big 28-yarder. He's so electric when he gets the ball, and he did give me a heart attack when he fumbled, and luckily it was overturned on a very close play. But Keegan Jones is way too talented to not get the ball. He also had 3 carries for 22 yards, largely with a 17-yard run. I mean, TJ Harden only getting 7 carries, not good enough. And he only had 15 yards with it, not good enough. Jalen Berger, he showed you some things in terms of, being a bigger guy, but still having agility. 3 carries for 19, largely because of a 13-yard carry. And Carter Shaw, a couple plays, really impressive. He does have a end around that goes for 9, but it could have gone for -2 if he didn't make 3 or 4 guys miss. Impressive there. I'd say the biggest takeaway in terms of receivers is actually Logan Loya. A lot of talk from me and from others. I had my video on my own UCLA YouTube channel. Check that out, by the way, if you haven't. GAV, just look up GAV UCLA and it should pop up on YouTube. I was talking to my man Will Decker about Logan Loya, and after the Hawaii game, why he wasn't seeing the field, let alone seeing targets. Today, more like it, largely because of the absence of Titus TMA. So Logan Loya gets to start in the slot, but he looked really good. Not only did he have that great touchdown catch on that great touchdown throw from Ethan Garbers, but 4 for 46 overall with the touchdown. Logan Loya looked like the Logan Loya that Chip Kelly wanted to hit on every third down the last couple of years, to be honest. So good to see that. Rico Flores, only 4 for 27. J.Michael Sturdivant, he's way too talented to only have 2 catches for 26 yards. Way too talented. That back shoulder throw where he makes that catch, that's J-Mike. This guy is way too talented. When we got him from Cal a couple seasons ago, this was going to be the receiver that took our offense to the next level. Hasn't happened yet for him. Want to see more of that. But in terms of Ethan Garbers, he hits Jack Peterson for a big, long 20-yard touchdown. He hit Logan Loya for that touchdown in that red zone situation where UCLA actually scores a touchdown. It's overturned thanks to a horrible holding call, and yet with 8 seconds left in the second quarter, Garbers evades pressure, a couple guys, gets drilled as he throws, and yet hits Logan Loya on the money. I'm going to keep talking about that play for a while because that was one of the best plays I've seen from Ethan Garbers, and that's what I was saying in the Hawaii game and even sometimes in the Indiana game. Garbers continues to make a couple plays every game where he looks like Pat Mahomes back there, where he looks like Caleb Williams for SC last year, making multiple guys miss and then making some incredible throw. Now, the problem is he's having to do that way too much. And some guys like Patrick Mahomes, like Caleb Williams in college, not yet in the NFL, they can make that play every single time you need them to because they are just unbelievable. Garbers is not unbelievable. He can make that play multiple times, but you're asking him to make it way too much. And this offensive line is truly holding this team back. I mean, not just giving up sacks, not just having Ethan Garbers under pressure on almost every throw, but also costly holding penalties when there are completions, right? I just talked about the holding that almost took away a touchdown at the end of the second quarter that tied the game at 17. Imagine if that Garbers play, imagine if instead of him making that play, he gets sacked again. He should have. Or even if he evades and doesn't hit Logan Loya, who knows? Maybe time runs out and UCLA doesn't even score any points, right? So holding calls, mistakes, obviously horrible pass blocking overall. This offensive line is holding this team back. And how much of that is talent? How much of that is coaching? I don't know exactly. I'm sure it's a little bit of both. How much of that is Eric Bieniemy? I thought he actually called a decent game for the most part in terms of mitigating that weakness, but still, between the offensive line coaching, between the play calling, it's clearly not good enough because you scored 0 points in the second half, and your front seven of opposing teams dominates UCLA in all 3 games so far. Not just against the talented LSUs, but also against Indiana and Hawaii, who UCLA should be more talented than both of those programs, right? So, but overall, in terms of the offense, certainly some positives. I think Garbers can be, for the rest of the season, a good quarterback for UCLA. The problem is, imagine what happens next year if we don't have an elite guy and everything else still looks like it does. We're in trouble, right? But I'm confident in Garbers the rest of the year. I think if you continue to give this guy more time where he can actually make some throws where he's flat platform with a comfortable pocket, he has the arm talent to make 15-yard throws across the middle without, being underwhelming. So I'm positive there. Would like to see some more from the run game, specifically TJ Harden. This should be one of the best backs in the Big Ten. In a Big Ten that's always got great running backs, TJ Harden, talent-wise, body-wise, all of that is up there with them. But it's not happening. And it's largely because of the offensive line, but it's also largely because he only gets 7 carries. TJ Harden should have double-digit carries every game. And this wide receiving core is so talented, but it's not showing enough. Rico Flores is more talented than 4 for 27. J.Michael is way more talented than 2 for 26, right? So there are certainly positives on the offensive front, but it feels like this line is holding this team back. When we come back from our last break, we'll talk about the defense, because at the end of the day, I'm 27 minutes in and I haven't even really talked about the fact that UCLA gave up 34 points. Right? So we'll talk about that. I think there's a talented roster there on the defensive side of the ball. I think this one is a lot about coaching. So we'll talk about that after our last break here on the Locked On UCLA Postcast. Now, finally, today's UCLA Postcast is brought to you once again by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, college football fans, all of that, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. That's FanDuel. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Guaranteed, $200? All you got to do is place a $5 bet. You don't even have to win to receive the $200. It's guaranteed. That is pretty darn amazing. So go visit FanDuel.com. Take advantage of that amazing offer where you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And also, like I just said, on the FanDuel page, you can view stats, you can see live play-by-play, and make adjustments based on that. So go ahead and visit FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Back here live one more time on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel. This is the Locked On UCLA Postcast. I'm Gavin Carlson, former credentialed UCLA journalist, lifelong UCLA fan, recent alum, just graduated in June, all that good stuff. Every perspective on this team. Please go ahead and follow me on Twitter. I have a lot to say about UCLA, always there. Kind of made the rounds with a couple tweets this afternoon. I was watching this game this first half at least, while lifting at the Wooden Center. If you are a UCLA alum, you know what the Wooden Center is on campus. And I kind of had a tweet that went a little semi-viral, complaining about the fact that not a single TV had the UCLA game on. And I don't mean these TVs were playing, trivia or playing, news. They were playing about every other sporting event other than this game. Arkansas-Auburn was on there. USC-Michigan was on there. There was replays of Eagles-Falcons on TVs at Wooden. There was CNBC News on at Wooden. But not a single TV had UCLA's nationally televised football game playing there. And I want to say this on the video because there's some people who are misinterpreting what I'm saying on Twitter/X. This is not calling out the people who work at Wooden for not being willing to change the channel if I were to ask them. A lot of people are like, well, why don't you just ask them to change the channel? One, those people who work at Wooden, as someone who lifts there every single day, they're actually quite busy. Two, I've asked people in the past to change the TVs, and of course they do, but they're busy and they don't really want to. It's not about the fact that, Gavin, you should have just asked them. It's not about the fact that, that. It's about the fact that no one else in that entire gym, that gym made up of 100 plus UCLA students, including, like I pointed out, it's move-in weekend. So there's a lot of freshmen on campus right now at that gym that could be exposed to UCLA football right away, their first weekend on campus. And yet it's not on. And it's not that a employee wouldn't change it. They would. Shout out to everybody that works out wouldn't. But it's that UCLA's culture in terms of sports does not have enough of an impact to where an employee would automatically think to put the game on every single TV, on every single one. Nobody even thought that should have happened. So that's the problem. Okay, so don't misinterpret what I'm saying as employees wouldn't change the channel if you didn't ask, or Gavin's just complaining and he didn't ask to change it. No, it's just a little bit eye-opening that UCLA is playing a nationally televised football game against a ranked opponent on ABC, a channel that grandmas accidentally turned on to watch the news and instead watched a UCLA game, and yet nobody in that whole gym thought to themselves, why isn't this game on? We should put this game on. Other than me? Come on, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. But enough about that. We'll quickly talk now about the defense for UCLA in this one. Garrett Nussmeier, I actually think he's a better quarterback than a lot of people gave him credit for coming into this season. They saw LSU lose that game to USC, and they think this LSU team's overrated. I thought USC, if anything, the takeaway, as much as I hate to say it, grew up learning to hate USC. But that game, in my opinion, was about USC being an elite team when they beat LSU. And then LSU wins a game they probably shouldn't have in South Carolina, where half the reason they won is because South Carolina's starting quarterback gets hurt. But there was also a couple fluky plays. South Carolina had 2 runs over 60 yards in that game. So I came into this one saying I actually think LSU is better than number 16 in the country and better than what people are saying, which is why I was terrified coming into this game, and which is why the first half was a moral victory. But at the end of the day, the second half wasn't, and it's because Nussmeier and crew absolutely lit this defense up. Nussmeier goes 32 of 44 for 352 yards and 3 touchdowns. The running game was cooking, 28 carries for 102 yards. I don't think we sacked Nussmeier. We didn't sack Nussmeier once. And that's despite UCLA blitzing like every play. And so that's where I get real critical. One more thing I will say is that there's a very talented receiving core for LSU. Kyron Lacey, we limit him to 3 catches for 23 yards. I think he is the next great LSU receiver. Aaron Anderson, he looked great, 6 for 75. But why in the world is Mason Taylor, the tight end, who is good, by the way, very talented guy, why is he the leading receiver with 8 catches for 77 yards? Why did Nussmeier, go 32 of 44 and not have any interceptions, not have any near picks, not get sacked once? Because there's too many open guys, man. There's too many open receivers. And the reason is not because this team is not talented, this defense for UCLA. I have been very underwhelmed with what I've seen in the past couple of seasons from Devin Kirkwood, because I thought this guy has the frame, the athleticism to be an elite corner. And at times he shows it, but at times he doesn't. Jalen Davies, 2 years ago, if I remember correctly, he broke out and was a spectacular corner for UCLA. Last year, on and off. This year, I thought he was pretty bad against Indiana. Thought he was a lot better today. The corners were tackling really well. The linebackers, Kay Madrano, Oluwemfe Oladejo, really talented guys. The safeties, whether it's Brian Addison, whether it's Wallace, whether it's, I'm blanking on the names now. I'm blanking on the names. But a lot of elite defensive backs as well for this team. So why in the world are so many people open? It's play calling, in my opinion. 3rd and longs being converted. I think the best example was there was like a 3rd and 8, and UCLA blitzes like 6 guys. And so there's just a wide open tight end. And if you're going to blitz, why are you so soft so that quarterback snaps the ball, throws it to a wide open guy? Doesn't even have to think. Make the quarterback think. Especially when you're down 2 scores, which was the case on that play, you got nothing to lose. If you're going to blitz, then press. Press. And if they throw one over the top for 30 yards and just burn you one-on-one, I guess you tip your cap, right? But you don't even make it hard. When you blitz 6, but then just give 20 yards of cushion, and all the quarterback has to do is snap the ball and not even have to, worry about the blitz getting to him because there's someone open in half a second. How many times did we see Indiana do it? How many times did we see Nussmeier do it today? Snap, See where the blitz is coming and throw it to that guy. I've never played football a day in my life, and some people, because of that, will say, I don't know what I'm talking about. I watch a lot of football. I listen to a lot of people talk about football. It is common sense. When a quarterback snaps the ball and they see someone blitzing, throw to where that guy's blitzing from. Most of the time, it's open. And how many times did we hear Jesse Palmer on the broadcast say, wow, great job by Nussmeier. He snaps the ball, sees a blitz coming on his right side, throws it to the right, wide open guy. First down. All the time. All the time. I like that we're an aggressive team. And one thing I really like, and that we didn't used to see from Jerry Azzinaro, rest in peace, of course, going to respect that. But what we didn't see against him, or with him, we saw a guy that was blitz happy, but he was blitz happy every time, and he never disguised it. What I will give Ikaika Malloe credit for is that he does love to blitz, but he also shows blitz on every play, and then he backs out of it a lot. I love that, because that is trying to complicate things for the opposing QB. But the problem is, every time we do that, we still give 10 yards of cushion and they complete a pass. How many plays did UCLA get burned over the top with a guy wide open today? None. None. Because we're never pressing and getting burned. Because I think our corners are talented. Whenever we press, we're usually there and they just make tough catches. There was a tough catch against Kanye Clark. Or no, that was Crow Sturt, where they just made a great catch against him. Kanye Clark, couple great defensive plays. Once again, the tackling from our defensive backs was actually really good today. But the amount of times that there's wide open tight ends specifically, where you don't even have to think. He's not wide open because the quarterback made, guys are wide open for UCLA's offense because Garbers made 3 guys miss. And then, of course, it's hard to guard when the quarterback creates 5 seconds of time before he throws the ball and he's out of the pocket and he might run. And there's all these things the defenders have to think about. That's not what Nussmeier did today. He snapped the ball. He looked to where the blitz was coming from. There's a guy wide open. When we didn't blitz, he snapped the ball. He waited. He had all day to throw. He got it there. I understand why we're blitzing. Our front 7, specifically our front 4, is not getting any pressure on the quarterback organically with just the 4 of them. So I get that we have to blitz in order to create pressure. But if we're just going to blitz and then not guard anybody until they're 15 yards down the field, then quarterbacks are going to do what has happened in all 3 games. Snap the ball, look, blitz is coming, throw it to the wide open guy right away. First down, first down, first down. There was 2 drives that went more than 90 yards for LSU today. And it wasn't because they had big 60-yard completions. It's because snap the ball, wide open guy, 5-yard throw. Snap the ball, wide open guy, 12-yard throw. Okay, UCLA finally doesn't blitz, snap the ball, quarterback waits there for 10 minutes, throws to a wide open guy. It's hard to be a defensive back. I think it's the hardest position in sports. And it's really hard when you blitz and you're not getting in there right away. And it's really hard when you're rushing 4 and you're not getting in there for 4 or 5 seconds. So defense is kind of a concern. We knew that last season was large. I mean, D'Anton Lynn deserves a lot of credit. He does. But it was also largely because we had one of the best pass rushers in the history of UCLA. Arguably the best pass rusher, maybe the best defender in all of college football last year in Latu. But he also had 2 Murphy twins next to him. He still had Jay Toya. He still had Keanu Williams, both the guys that are still here. But there was pass rushers everywhere, man. And there's not that right now. And it's really hard to win games and be a good defense when you can't create pressure organically. And when you blitz, you're not getting home because the secondary is not being put in the right position. So the jury's still out on Ikaika Malloe. I think there's potential there. I love that he disguises blitzes. But I think the strategy in terms of what he does with the secondary can be improved. But with all that being said, we're going to wrap this one up. Another long UCLA postcast because I have a lot to say. Shout out to everybody in here. I will look at some comments. Daniel Park says, you'd think Foster would make sure the installs with the new offense would include a strong run scheme. I agree that it could be better. I don't think it's also on DeShaun Foster. I think it's on Eric Bieniemy. A pass-heavy, maybe that's what you're saying, though, Daniel. Maybe you're saying, hey, DeShaun Foster should know Bieniemy is a pass-heavy guy and tell him to run the ball more. Maybe that's what you're saying. But if you're critical of the fact that we're not running the ball enough, the number one culprit for that is Eric Bieniemy. Tony does say that UCLA looked much improved this week. They absolutely did. And that's why I was the number one guy screaming that was the best half of football we've seen in a while from UCLA. Really proud of what I saw in the first half. Made me proud to be an alum. But the second half wasn't good enough at all. And that's why it's not a moral victory. I view UCLA way too highly to think a 17-point loss can ever be a moral victory. Ross Saucy James adds rough loss on the road, but they did look better. Absolutely. And that's going to be a big takeaway, and I'm glad because UCLA fans are very critical because we expect excellence. And so a lot of fans are going to come and say, this game was terrible. We lost by 17. But I'm glad that most people are on the other side, say, I would rather fans be overly kind to this team than overly critical, because that means more fans are going to donate to NIL, more fans are going to pack the Rose Bowl, more fans are going to be positive online and bring pride to, the whole UCLA community online in the faces of the rest of the nation. So I'm fine that the fans are maybe more positive than me. But that's also why I'm going to be the guy who looks at it extremely objectively as a fan, but also someone who's covered this team and says, as a fan, as someone who loves this school, I'm proud, but it can be a lot better. And it will be a lot better because I believe in DeShaun Foster, I believe in DeShaun Foster as a leader of men and a leader of a program. I think he will be a great recruiter for UCLA. I think he will do exactly what he did today in environments where UCLA is a huge underdog, and strictly out of motivation and inspiration and passion and his status amongst his players as a legend. He will turn games that UCLA is a huge underdog into close games. The next step, though, for DeShaun Foster and for UCLA is to not have it be only about passion, only about that stuff, but also about execution, X's and O's, and being more talented. And that will, I strongly believe, because I believe in DeShaun Foster, that will come with time. But with all that being said, I'll wrap this one up. I'm Gavin Carlson. This was the Locked On UCLA Postcast. Bruins fall 34-17. A lot to be positive about, a lot to be critical of. But hey, maybe the next two games will be close because of what they did today. And this team, because of DeShaun Foster, they can rapidly improve. Not many teams, some teams have a great coach, but a roster that needs to improve. We see that all the time with lower level schools. Then we see great schools who might have a great coach and a great roster in terms of potential, but they're not to their standard yet, right? This is a team who has a roster that can certainly be more talented, but is also more talented than what they've shown. And then they have a coach that is going to get better and better as a coach with every week that passes. So the future is still bright for UCLA. I didn't say that last week, and that's why this is a positive day to some degree, because last week I did not think the future was bright at all. I still think in the long run, I don't think this season, that's why it's not a moral victory. This season's still looking like we're going to win a couple games. But in the long run, I still think DeShaun Foster can lead this team, this program, to what it deserves and should accomplish. But with all that being said, we'll wrap this one up. I'm Gavin Carlson. Thanks so much for watching. Once again, shout out to the more than 5,000 people who watched this show last week. Let's have another great showing from our fans on this one as well. And please, 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 my last humble plug, please go check out my personal YouTube channel. The link will be in the description. It's also, you can just search it on YouTube, GAV, just look up GAV UCLA or something, and it should pop up. Please go to subscribe to that. I'm going to have all sorts of UCLA content throughout the year over there as well. But all right, enough about me, enough about this game. Go enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you back here next week for the UCLA Postcast. I'll see you tomorrow for the Rams Postcast. I'll see you throughout next week for the Angels Postcast, all that good stuff. Take care, Brew Nation. 4's up. You can do an 8 clap a little bit more proud than last week. And eventually, whether it's in a couple weeks or next season or in a couple years, we'll be doing that 8 clap in the college football playoff. I truly believe that. All right, take care, everybody. 4's up. Go Bruins. I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend.